Hi, welcome to Les Corujas. I'm so happy that you're here. We're here in Central Park, very dark, very quiet, and I have my dear friend Krishna with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about dreams. I have about 10 other conversations that have happened spontaneously across the years, throughout the years that I've been doing this show. And developing a relationship and a friendship with Krishna was realizing that she is probably the best person to explore and go deep into what dreams really mean. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here. There will be parts that will be in Spanish, but there will be English subtitles for that. Y las partes que están en español y si quieren seguir en español estarán también en inglés abajo. And that's it. Welcome, Krishna. Everyone too.
People talk about gender being a construct. I agree with that concept. But I also agree that all those other things are equally abstract and truly hard to define. Because again, it is a relative thing of being. And so is existence itself. Because, right, some people are like, what if we're all in a simulation? It's like a computer simulation? Open your mind. What if we were a dream? What if we were a fart at the end, speaking of sound, of a dream of some alien in an alternate dimension?
The definition of a dream is just an impression that will pass. But that's everything. Like everything, comes into form and then dissolves.
Goes away. Yeah.
So you could think of any object as you define it and look at it as a dream. This is like a dream of a chair. And this is
because later on it won't be a chair anymore?
a dream of a dream. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, that's like any argument that explains everything is not really an argument, So, I don't know how meaningful it is, but I've had a lot of questions about dreams that whether or not they're really good specific questions, I think they feel evocative to me, like, are we responsible for our dreams?
Because our subconscious mind is us. So even though I know people have some very terrifying experiences, our subconscious mind has our best interests at heart in that when we are exploring, and there's different theories and ideas about why we dream. One theory is that essentially our brain is creating predictive models to help us to move through the world, to be able to predict all kinds of danger. So that's kind of what dreams do. It allows you to explore. But because of the creative potential of dreams, there's so many different ways that these feelings of fear or betrayal or pain or love or joy or all these different feelings and experiences can be explored. And one thing that people don't realize, because the subconscious is you are always in control. You're always in control up to the point that you know you're in control. So as much as you believe you're in control, that's how much control you have. So if you don't believe you're in control at all, which usually happens, and it's funny because it even reminds me of people who say that like we're all like God dreaming a dream, like just God forgetting that God is God in order to be able to enjoy this world, this constructed world that God has created. And it's kind of like that in the dream. Like you are the God of this realm, but you forget that you're the God of this realm. And lucid dreaming is, in a way,
What if we were a dream? That guy Zhuang that I was telling you about, his most famous philosophical parable is called the parable of the butterfly. And it goes like this. Zhuang woke up with his disciples around him and they said, "What's up, Zhuang?" And he looked kind of pensive and he said, "I was dreaming I was a butterfly. And then I fell asleep as the butterfly and then I woke up. And I don't know if I am Zhuang who dreamt of a butterfly or I am a butterfly who's dreaming that they're a person."
Beautiful.
Right? And fucking profound as all get up.
I did think about this when you were laying down and saying, what's the point of, what's wrong with being useless?
What's wrong with being useless?
And I think about this a lot. I do think ultimately what we're doing here is to just take care of ourselves, take care of our bodies,
Sure.
to then go to sleep and dream. Because
And
when we dream, that's when we really live.
Yeah. And
That's the
how we
ultimate
see
reality.
fit to do that, or when we don't do that, As long as we are not doing harm to other people.
También aquí vienes para cómo cuidar de tu cuerpo y solo vives cuando estás soñando, en el sueño. Ese es verdaderamente vivir. Y cuando te despiertas, solo tienes que tomar cuenta de tu cuerpo. Esa es otra teoría que me viene. Y aquí solo tienes que ser bueno para los demás y cuidar de nosotros para que cuando vamos a dormir, ese sí es la realidad. O cuando crías o cuando estás en un estado trascendental.
See, to me, it's one of those things where the ability to dream, it's almost like if we're talking about, you know, the unconscious dreams, you know, like when you're going to sleep and stuff like that, you know? To me, it's kind of like if you could sustain that world forever, then you have a case for saying the whole world could be a dream. But the very fact is that some people have, like, think about any good dream that you've had and you want to keep going. Can you keep it going? Can we truly just live in our heads, right?
When I was in 10th grade, I had this child development and psychology teacher. And one day she just talked to us about lucid dreams. I think she just was interested in it and wanted to like talk to us about it honestly, because she just talked about it that period. And it popped in my head, and I thought, like, am I in a lucid dream right now? And the second, like, the word lucid dream popped in my head, it was like, it felt like, and my eye opened and I was suddenly actually awake inside the dream. So, like, the way that I'm sitting here, like, with you talking, I was awake inside the dream, looking around, and I was just like, whoa.
Let's say I then dream, and I dream of using my left hand, and I experience those dreams as reality. In what sense is that freedom and, like?
Well, you already used the word dream, so.
So I guess, yeah, at that point it's like, but as I know it, that is reality. War veterans that have lost their arms can experience something called a phantom limb, where they feel pain in their limb after it's been gone, because the nerve endings like never like process the fact that there was nothing else there. And like the way that they stop that is like, because your brain thinks that it's there, it's real. The pain is as real as anything ever, because your brain knows that it's real. And something to be real must just exist in your brain. That's the only thing.
Sí, hay cosas que son construidas mentalmente, incluso de las cosas que estamos ahora, físicas, que puede ser ahora, de lo que yo considero lo más real que hay, tangible.
Pero ahora, esto que pasa aquí, ¿es una construcción de mi mente o de tu mente o son de los dos?
De los dos.
¿Sí?
Sí, porque cada uno tiene se está llevando lo suyo, está pasando su experiencia. Podemos estar hablando de lo mismo, pero pensando de cosas distintas o con objetivos distintos, por ejemplo.
Así, claramente. Pero eso es con todas las personas, ¿no?
Claro.
Con objetivos
Pero
totalmente.
Pero en la realidad general, Andrés y él están en el muelle tirados. Eso es lo real. Nosotros estamos acá. Porque es lo que tocamos, es lo que te digo, puedo tocar, puedo chupar el piso, puedo sentir el viento, puedo sentir el calor.
En los sueños también puedes sentir eso.
No, yo nunca sentí dureza en un sueño.
¿No?
No.
¿Nunca sentiste dolor?
No.
Yo ya creo.
Ganas de hacer pis. Ganas sí, por ejemplo.
Ganas sí.
He estado soñando 1000 veces en playa, por ejemplo, pero nunca soñé con el calorcito de la playa. Nunca sentí eso.
Nunca sentiste. Entonces quizá la diferenciación es esta, es que los sueños, todas las almas pueden existir, los muertos y los vivos, y en la realidad solo quien tiene los sentidos...
Lo suficientemente abierto.
Sí, que somos nosotros, que eso es vivir, tener los sentidos abiertos. Eso es cool. ¿No?
Sí.
¿Tiene sentido o no?
Sí.
Wow.
And I remember looking around, and it looked hyper realistic. It looked realer than real. Like, I don't know if anyone has ever seen like those Christian movies where like they go to heaven or whatever. It was like that little filter, like that little heaven. It just felt realer than real, like sharp, hyper realistic, like 4K. Everything just looked so clear. And I just remember my mind was going, and I was thinking like, wait, so my mind has memories of like me seeing the sky and me seeing like the street and just made this construction of a world that I'm looking at right now. Like I'm inside my mind, looking at my mind, and like I went and I started touching the grass and like feeling the grass, and it felt exactly like real grass outside, indistinguishable.
Pero si los sueños son una construcción cerebral y nuestra realidad también, nosotros lo creamos ese momento ahora aquí, los dos, si es una colaboración de construcción mental, ¿cuál es la diferenciación? ¿Es esa de los sentidos?
De los conceptos, creería yo. La diferenciación de las realidades nuestras estaría en los conceptos que tenemos de las cosas.
¿Y que en los sueños no lo tienes? ¿O sí lo tienes?
En los sueños no estás participando con otra persona.
Claro que sí, tienes un montón de otras personas.
Pero no son reales.
¿Pero no crees que tu padre es real en tu sueño?
No, por eso te digo que es una representación.
Es que pensaba que sí, que estabas diciendo que sí.
Are you saying that when we dream, is that when we fully experience reality? Because I claimed that at a point in this episode, that
okay.
I used to think that, because now I don't know if I am there anymore.
The dream is the exploration of the tunnel. It's the exploration of that space between the self model and the world model, and the way that we're able to explore using that. And so our reality, our subjective reality, is shaped through that tunnel. And so in a way, we truly see ourselves when we're able to get deep down in our dream space and in waking life to the construction of what makes us who we are, or makes what forms our story that we tell ourselves about us and the world. Objective reality, I think that through us letting go of kind of ideas about ourselves and the world that we've been attached to that cloud our judgment, that helps us to see more of the world in a more objective way that's maybe less tied to pain, like lenses that are rooted in like pain or whatever it is that we've attached ourselves to that we need to let go of. It's more so an exploration of our subjective reality that we can use as a tool to see the world more clearly.
So it's like, to me with dreams, it's kind of like, I like thinking about dreams more as like aspirations and in that sort of sense, right? And I think that sort of subconscious dream is your mind basically playing with recreating the whole world, so to speak. You know, that's where some people can get insight from it, right? Like what your mind chooses to build in its off time. You know, with the limited power it has left, that's what it chooses to focus on. You know, that can be revealing or it cannot be. And some people have nightmares, you know? That's the whole thing. You know, dreams end. Reality's always kind of there. You know, that's something you have to face first to even have the dream.
Tu sueño es vivir de la música, ¿verdad?
No.
¿No?
No.
No, pensaba que sí.
La música lo hago porque me llena. Me llena mucho. Me llena tocar, me llena que la gente lo vea, lo disfrute. Me hace bien al alma. Me hace bien al alma.
Pero no es lo que... Pensaba que sí que eres lo que querías verdaderamente.
A ver, me encantaría, pero no lo tengo como un sueño.
No.
No, porque no estoy haciendo lo suficiente como para poder decir que es mi sueño. Si fuese mi sueño, bastante me estaría rascando los huevos.
¿Tienes un sueño?
No sé si es un sueño, pero me gustaría con un poco más de intención, porque tengo más trayectoria y porque sigo tratando de buscar trayectoria en el rubro, logística.
Como 11, 12 que quería ser actriz.
¡Wow!
Sí,
¡Qué
sí,
fuerte!
13 ya estaba segurísima. Y solo
¿Y
17...
pero nunca te dijeron nada cuando les contaste que querías estudiar de actriz?
Ah, sí, claro, pero lo que
Sí.
pasó es que yo allí, cuando les conté, ya tenía una bolsa para estudiar y ya estaba tratando de como financiarme mi propia, entonces yo estaba
Claro, qué
como...
bueno.
Y ellos fue como, oh, wow, ella está como, ya está.
Bueno, menos mal que no bajaste los brazos, porque muchos hubiesen dado por vencida antes.
Sí, pero el sueño primero era de ser jugadora de...
Bueno.
Y ahora lo miro,
¿Y ahora no te gustaría retomar ese sueño?
quizá, pero profesional nunca. Miro sus vidas y su, ¿sabes? De jugar todo el... no.
What you were saying about art, I do think doing art when you're really, really deep is almost like dreaming, like a dreamlike state.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're similar words by chance.
This is sort of entering a personal belief of mine. And I wrote something as I was going through this process of understanding dreams that etymologically, the evolution of the word dreams and the fact that we use our aspirations and we use the same word, dreams, and dreaming in the dream state, I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't believe it to be a coincidence. Why do you think that happens, and how are like aspirations in terms of what you experienced in dreams different in the dream state versus in reality?
We have an idea of what we want, but our subconscious knows what we truly want. And also it knows what we need to face to get there. And so I think I didn't really know that. I think that's a really cool fact, because I do think that when you engage with dreams, it is a way for you to become the best version of yourself, like your higher self in a way, because you're able to fully, not only are you able to learn another language for how you see and communicate with the world and with yourself, but you're also able to engage with unconscious material that you maybe would not be able to see or engage with in waking life in the same way. Sometimes we have dreams based on an ego, a narrative that we have constructed that isn't true to who we really are or what we're really meant to do. So, for example, we live in a capitalist society, we create aspirations around money, and so now we kind of focus all our goals around that, whereas there are other aspects of ourselves that, or things that we value that are more aligned with who we are, that we aren't able to engage with because we're in survival mode in this society that we have to value money in order to survive. And so that shapes our aspirations to build a balanced, sustainable model, flexible model that can also change with new information and grow with new information. When you're able to create this model, you're able to align with the best version of yourself, which therefore also helps you align with your dreams and aspirations that are going to actually be fulfilling to you and be true to who you are, inside and out. So I think that that's kind of one really strong purpose of the subconscious mind and of dreams that we don't utilize enough as a society.
Quieren guiarte, quieren hacer lo que quieren.
Se podría decir que en muchos casos son cosas que los ayudan a resolver problemas que no pudieron resolver.
Ah, cool. Hay quien diga que los sueños es eso. Entonces quizá los dos es para eso.
Y a
Que
lo
los
mejor es la
sueños puedes
manera.
resolver las cosas que no puedes resolver en lo físico.
Bueno, sí, que los sueños te pueden acomodar las ideas, los sueños te pueden acomodar las ideas, sí.
No, pero esa persona está diciendo que lo cree que lo resolves, ¿sabes? Que no
Soñando.
necesitas de resolver aquí porque ya lo resolviste. ¿Cómo se dice?
Lo resolviste en tu cabeza.
Resolviste, güey. No, en los sueños.
En los
¿Qué
sueños.
se pasó? Y que eso te trajo una energía para aquí también, ya está. No necesitas de hacer más.
Sí.
No sé,
Yo lo digo de otra
interesante.
manera, pero sí, es lo mismo.
Pero entiendes.
Sí, es lo mismo, pero con otras palabras. Porque lo que yo digo es que aprendés en el sueño. Entonces es como que lo viviste, ya lo experimentaste, es la simulación perfecta. Entonces es la experiencia más ideal como para entender un concepto. Y después cuando te despertás, ya tenés ese concepto. Y te va a resultar más fácil llevarlo a la vida.
Wow, this is cool.
Me personally, L, as I go through life, I don't think I have that power yet. I mean, I do, but I'm not conscious of it yet, you know?
Which power?
Of alchemizing the dreams. But I think we all do. I think, deja vus, that's what it is. Like you experience in the dream form, and then I had this conversation with a friend actually in Barcelona. We were saying, so in the dream state, you kind of like are tested. And then if you really like it and you're meant to experience, then you experience again here. So the dream's like a test realm, because you can experience anything at any time, right? Without the notion of time, the notion of space, the notion of anything. And then if it helps in your current mission of the world and your current incarnation, then you experience here. And that's why you have deja vus. So it's a funny thing if you think about it like that.
That makes complete sense.
Does it?
Where did you learn that?
Just my mind.
You're channeling.
Yeah.
But your brain creates a model. It creates a model of the world, and it creates a model of the self. And actually there is this book I'm reading called The Ego Tunnel by Thomas Metzinger, and I hope I pronounced that right. And he talks about how essentially our subjective experience is the tunnel between our self-model, our phenomenal self-model, and our world model that our minds create. Our sense of self is actually a construction that our mind creates using the stimuli, externally, and also like internal reflections on what exactly we are and what the world is. And through this construction, we get a subjective sense of reality. So there's an objective reality, and the idea is that we see reality through the tunnel, like the ego tunnel, of our perspective. And so to, be more free, authentic, and connected with ourselves is to kind of let go of the aspect of ourselves that cage us inside that tunnel so it can expand and we can see more and more of reality for what it is.
But that, regardless those ideas, if you have the dream, that dream is itself, and there's no need to go beyond that to make sense of it. This is the situation, like I think about fiction as well in the same way, like let's see.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned almost like a separation from reality in the future, almost like the brain rests at the constant like anxiety of present versus past versus future.
Yeah, maybe that's interesting.
That's what I heard from what you were saying. I'm not sure if that's what you meant. When you talked about the separation, I was like, oh wow, is he talking about being separate from that time constraint, almost like the constant time constraint that we have?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's really just that related, but I'm just looking at stuff I've written about dreams. This sentence has no context, so it sounds like it's the end of a paragraph, but it's not. It just says, let them evaporate into fiction, not falsehoods or punishing realities, but wonderful substantive fiction. Where it's like you can have, you have whatever contradiction in your mind or issue or something about the world or yourself that confuses you, and you don't have to deny it, push that thing away. You don't have to submit to that reality as if it's the thing that you like live. It's not like it's your master, that thing. But if you can kind of weave it into a story, into some kind of fiction, then it still is real. It still has some kind of character in your mind and your life, But if you can make it into fiction or kind of characterize it as a dream of some kind, then it liberates you from having to deal with it, and it becomes both less real, but also becomes more substantive in reality. Like if you have a really sad story, if something really sad happens to you, then you can either stay in it and be stuck with this sadness, or if you can just kind of dream up a story, write up some way of thinking about it to characterize it as just a story, and that makes it more beautiful and probably makes you more mature. You know, it's a way of moving past things, to write them into terms that you can understand.
You know, because when you're inside the dream, it's constantly trying to create narratives to explain what is happening, even if it doesn't make sense. That's what dreams do all the time. That's why, you'll be in a dream and a pink elephant will walk by, and you won't wake up from the dream and be like, that's weird. Instead, you'll find an excuse mentally to explain it and kind of move on and continue in the dream, move on to the next scene. And so,
wait, otherwise, if you would realize that it's odd, you would wake up?
Yes. A lot of the time when we don't connect with aspects of ourselves, we are creating narratives around those missing pieces. And we create stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and what the world is based on these missing pieces that may be found in kind of exploring these more abstract, symbolic aspects of ourselves. Or if you're too in the abstract, maybe the more narrative version of yourself.
And so when you're dreaming, you become aware of those narrative loops?
So I always see dreams as the subconscious. It's like a playground for the subconscious. So the subconscious has...
Lonesome Road. This train. And I'm going to see how many going to ride on it.
I don't know why I've been needing to sleep more, because I don't think I sleep that well. How do you sleep at the hostel? Do you sleep well? And so I need to recover more.
I've been sleeping very well.
That's good.
Why do you feel like you struggle with sleep?
I sleep well, don't get me wrong, but I usually sleep really profoundly and really deep. And it's just because I hear the noises, I have a lot of nightmares. But that has been going on for a while now.
Do you feel comfortable with sharing?
My nightmares?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't... No, but it's time. You're right. It's about time that they're recorded. It just has to do what happened with my family. I don't know if you know, but I don't talk to my family. I cut my family off completely about 1.5 years ago. And so my nightmares are just kind of about that I'm back in Portugal and I can't leave, and they don't let me leave, and I'm paralyzed in my legs, and I just can't do anything, or I used to have worse ones, that I was going crazy mentally.
When was the last nightmare that you had?
Tonight. But tonight's nightmare, I think it was the same. It's like I'm there and I can't come, and I cannot make it to my shift, to the cleaning shift, and I'm gonna be on the street and they're gonna kick me out and shit like that. But it's always that I'm in Portugal, and when I was in Barcelona it was the same, but that I was in Lisbon and I could not be back to Barcelona, me looking at flights or trains or buses or whatever to go to Barcelona. I don't know, it's just I'm always dreaming about that. tirelessly. That's also the funny part. It's just they don't end. But funny enough, on Saturday I was at this event in Brooklyn that was free. It was really cool. It was at the Library of Brooklyn, and one of the speakers there was a Tibetan. I don't know if he was a yogi or whatever, but he talked about dreams, and he said there are only bad dreams if you wake up feeling bad. If they are nightmares but you wake up feeling good, then they're not that bad. And I wake up feeling really good that I'm where I am, you know? So I guess they're nightmares because of the feelings I get when I'm having them. But when I wake up, it's like, oh, no, I'm in New York. I am not in Portugal. Thank God.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that you alchemize your dreams? You use them for power to use throughout your day?
In the way that it is really the brain trying to make sense. I see dreams as two things. One is like trying to resolve unresolved issues in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be trauma, it could be, relationship issues, it could be a variety of things that are really unresolved or that matter has yet to show you the ultimate purpose of them in your life. And so because of that, you're responsible on how the brain organizes it, right? And how the brain is showing you that message.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think that's really what it is. And it's a lot about fears too. So much of it is your fears.
Let's just say, for instance, someone that has a horrible nightmare, that they do something horrible in that nightmare. Like they either cheated on their partner or they killed someone, and something pretty big. And that nightmare haunts them for 10 years. Mm-hmm. What is something that you found in the dreams or in your practice of going deeper into dreams and understanding about them that might be liberating for us? Because sometimes there have been things in my dreams that I don't like it. I don't experience. I don't like that sense of self that at least I have for myself. Mm-hmm. Are there any liberating views on it that we should start talking about it a little bit more?
Yeah, I would say one that I don't believe that shame is productive, in that it's not sustainable. So even if people do make some level of progress surrounding shame, it's not a sustainable way to grow. There's this saying, your first thought is what you've been conditioned to believe, your second thought is who you truly are. So if you think something and your first thought is that thought, but then you have a second thought of, oh shit, I do not like that. That second thought is who you truly are. And so if you feel shame around that thought, sitting in that shame keeps you stuck in the first thought. But when you're able to move past shame towards actual growth and wanting to be better, you have to get to a point of looking at that first thought under a microscope and getting to why did I have that thought in the first place and how can I prevent myself from having thoughts like that in the future. And then now you're not just hating yourself, you're not just looking down at yourself and creating more unconscious material to harm yourself with, because anything that your subconscious is harming you with is really you harming yourself. You instead engage with it in an unconditionally loving way that allows you to heal from whatever caused you to have that thought in the first place. And now you can actually be proud of growth rather than being stuck in shame.
Do you remember a moment that you've had that was that your sense of self changed, or something that made you? It's actually, I'm even asking, do I know that for myself? But that maybe a notion of self came into awareness, or a notion of self took shape.
Almost all of the experiences that I've had that I value, that were moments of awakening or realization, came from feeling loved. They came from moments where someone helped me in a way that was unexpected. And it happened many different ways. But every time I felt where I really was able to make progress, it was after I was helped by someone else or the universe or whatever. In other words, when I felt like I had a sense of being loved. And that gave me in each of these instances some extra energy that kind of like broke through a barrier, and allowed me to get clearer on something that was not clear at the time. And so I'm just a believer in the power of love.
Does the sense of self happen because of the other? Would you say absolutely yes?
I don't think it happens because of the other. I think that it's always in relationship. And I think the beginning, the self is nothing without relationship. In other words, it's always in relation to something, even if it's just our own body. I think the self is like the idea of subject-object. And if you have a subject, you have to have an object. Otherwise, there's no subject.
So
right?
That would be a relationship too that could form the self.
Right. I'm not so sure it forms the self, but it's part of the functionality of the self. In other words, if the self is just the subject in the subject-object relationship, there's no time where there's just a subject and no object. Those two are always, they're like opposite dualities that always exist together.
For one to exist, the other form must exist.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So is that the definition of relationship? The polarity of subject and object? Because that's so interesting what you're saying. Basically, then for a self to exist, there must be a relationship. So what is a relationship?
Well, I think the relationship is simply consciousness and matter at its most basic. In other words, the self, if we could say that there is a self, or we could say a self with a loose definition, is awareness, and it's awareness of something. In other words, awareness can't exist as just awareness. It's always awareness of something. So awareness is, you could say, being completed by the object that it's seeing. And whatever the object is can't exist unless it's seen. So they need each other, like this awareness or seeing process and something to be seen. And they kind of work together to create what we know as life or reality.
You seem to recall a lot of sense of self. So while dreaming or while in the dream state, was it more like a personal revelation towards who you are as a person, or towards your sense of self, or it's more like an awareness, a self-reflection of like, oh, I've constructed this identity because of this, and this narrative, but it's actually, and I can reverse that, or I have the power to change that. Which one? Does that make sense? They're almost the same, but like they would come from different angles.
I mean, I would say that inside the dream, my sense of self is usually just kind of this idea of the typical self model that I operate in the world with arising in the dream because of a layer of, like metacognition that arises that allows me to realize that I'm inside the dream. Whereas before that, I was operating under a different self model. So there is this region of the brain called the DMN, the default mode network. And the DMN is when we're kind of going inward, when we're reflecting, when we're kind of introspecting, thinking about our childhood, our values, things like that. We are operating using the DMN, and that's kind of the region of the brain that operates our sense of self. And through different neuroscientific studies, they found that this region of the brain is active during sleep. But when we're inside the mind, when we're outside in the world, we have external stimuli input helping us to inform our model. at the time. When we're inside the dream, we have absolutely no external stimuli. It is purely just us within the mind and what the mind chooses to construct.
I think that when you're dreaming, it's the other way around, where it's like your ideas or your feelings are the stable thing, and then your like world construct of like the situation and what's going on adapts to fit how you're feeling about something to like kind of tell a story. So it's like the actors are the emotions or the things inside of you, the ideas, and then the skin of it or the stage of it is the like physical world that's like kind of constructed to fit the emotions. So.
What's not like a dream?
I mean, what's not like a dream?
Yeah, what is it? Well, you said that's like a dream.
I think no, it's all like a dream. It's all the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in waking life, there seems to be this consistent thing, which is like the physical world.
You're talking
like
about
other people.
You're not talking about the movie.
No.
Okay.
I'm talking about I'm talking about actually waking, being awake
in regular life.
What we call awake, being awake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Versus
Yeah. It's like you're dreaming about things. You're creating this reality about like images and like this is a cup and this cup feels a certain way. And I remember this thing, whatever. That's like a constructed reality. But there's something that's kind of like pulling it together, which is like this really consistent physical reality, what we call physical reality, or like other people and so on. Whereas in a dream, you're still constructing this reality. But the thing that's consistent is like the emotion or the story, and like the physical world is like morphing. What people are saying is morphing, and it's like doesn't really matter, But there's a consistent thread of story, which is so it's like the same sort of thing, but it's just like what is stable changes.
Right. I've had really vivid ones, but the only time that I had a really lucid dream where I was completely aware and felt like myself. In a dream, I was laying down in a garden of plants and flowers that were like pulsing rainbows up through them from the ground up to the tops. And I was just looking at the plants, and then I woke up in bed, also laying down.
Wow.
That was the whole dream.
So as soon as you realized you were dreaming, you woke up.
Kind of, not too long after, yeah.
Okay.
But I definitely had a moment when I was dreaming, and I was like, wow, I'm aware here in the dream. Something else I thought about dreams, this idea that the purpose of dreams is to be moved beyond. That if you have a dream, you can basically either exhaust a dream by living it out in reality and seeing how it dies or changes that way, or just moving beyond it, or like thinking of it past it. If you had some kind of dream of like, oh, I want to have an expensive car and a big house, you could get that in real life. And this is kind of cynical. Maybe this is actually pretty cynical to think of it this way, but for a certain person, maybe they get that in real life and they realize it's not for them, or they just realize it's not for them in their mind. The dream itself shaped. But either way,
Is that what you mean when you say beyond? Like
the point of a dream, maybe. Some things are meant to be achieved, but I think a lot of dreams are kind of meant to be just confronted and then sort of transcended beyond. Like the point of achieving something is to discover what about it is not meaningful. I'm just realizing right now that this could be a lot of, I guess it's just a reflection of how I feel and what my life's been like for the last 7 years. But
which is what?
Well, a lot of
lack of resolution.
There's like a lack of resolution and maybe a lack of ambition in certain ways. Where I found a lot of, if I was to write stories that were, not like autobiographical necessarily, but of course to some degree they'll be based on my experience as a person and what happens in my life, in my mind. And a lot of what that winds up being, a lot of like the great conclusion of whatever it is I'm doing with my day or whoever I'm hanging out with is that I wind up standing somewhere or sitting somewhere by myself, and it's like
That's the
there's
resolution.
no, that's it. Like, there's no cool climax. There's no cool thing that happens. But it's like very poignant. It's not necessarily happy or sad. It's just like.
But there's a reflection
it.
in there,
Yeah.
right? In that you sitting by yourself, just
Yeah.
contemplating, that you're reflecting on it, right?
Yeah.
Your brain is just not passively doing it, nothing.
Yeah. There's something about it.
And I think that might be the resolution, just like reflecting on it, right?
Yeah.